giving you the insider takes and the big picture view on the Dogs. This is On the Beat, presented by Ingles, with DawgNation insider Mike Griffith and Cody Chaffins.
Happy Monday to you. Cody Chaffins, Mike Griffith with you inside Stegman Coliseum on the concourse today as we got some weather outside here in Athens. It is Georgia-Auburn week, but Mike, the show is called On the Beat. So my question for you, is there anything easier on a beat writer than a blowout like we saw last week?
You know, it was nice to be able to punch that button and send the story right when the clock hit zero. Kentucky with a late touchdown there kind of made it look a little bit closer than it really was. But no, I mean, that was a very workmanlike Georgia win. It's the kind of win you expect Kirby Smart to have.
And it's the kind of win they hadn't had in a long time. Like, it was not stressful for the first time in a long time. It feels like even Kentucky last year went right down to the end. Yeah,
well, you like them when they take care of business at home like that. They needed that momentum. So they go into a pretty hostile environment this week.
Yeah, we're not expecting this one to be sent at halftime this week as Georgia goes on the road to Jordan-Hare to face Auburn. And I started thinking about, even personally, what do you put on the packing list? For me, I got to shoot the game, right? So I got to get the camera, got to get the batteries, got to make sure you got a light stand and a tripod and all these things. So I'm thinking what Georgia needs to pack with them on the road this week. And, you know, they say what defense always travels, right? Well, that hadn't really been the strong suit of Georgia. But one thing that they did this past week will travel. If you can take this, it's going to be huge, and that would be getting going.
Yeah, you got to get a fast start. I mean, you want to do everything you can to take the crowd out of the game. That's going to be hard. I've noticed in past games, Auburn's crowd does stay in it. I covered a game there against LSU a few years ago. They're trailing, and that crowd just keeps coming. But you want to do everything you can to build some momentum, neutralize the crowd. You don't want those guys to be affecting the level of play. I thought Georgia did a really nice job managing the crowd in Knoxville against Tennessee, but I think Auburn's defense is probably a little saltier than the Vols.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things for a lot of reasons. Georgia just wants to get out there, and they finally did it against Kentucky. So I was going back and kind of looking through what got Georgia going. The first third down of the day, Gunnar Stockton on a 3rd and 2 scrambles for the first down or runs for the first down. He got hit a little bit. It's one of those things. I talked to him after the game. And actually somebody else came up later who wasn't in the thing and asked him the same kind of conversation. Hey, do you like to get bumped a little bit first? Gunnar seems like that kind of player where he just wants to get in this game a little bit. He wants to get knocked one time. I think that, you know, you convert that first third down, which you didn't do against Alabama, and then you kind of get going. That's, to me, part of the reason you had the fast start.
Yeah, that and Chauncey Bowens, I thought he really made the most of his first start, Cody. He had carries of 19 and 13 yards on his first 2 carries of the game. And when you're able to generate a little bit of momentum with the run game, that opens up the play action. And Kirby's been talking about that all along. And I think for this Georgia offensive line, the way they lost the Alabama game, put some of that on the offensive line, certainly. I think it was big that they had that confidence and they were able to score on those opening drives. And the way they did it, really like what Chauncey Bowens has brought to this offense. I mean, this is a physical running back, always falls forward and clearly secures the ball, which is why Nate Frazier isn't starting anymore.
Right. It was interesting to everybody was talking about the fast start and it's been the thing that it's almost like a buzzword that we're asking. Why'd y'all get off to such a slow start? What happened? Well, Mike finally, he's on the beat. He asked Kirby Smart about it at the press conference today. Here's what Kirby had to say.
No, I mean, I don't really know what you're asking. Do we want to start fast? Yes. What made us start fast? I can't give. We didn't take a pill. We didn't inject anything. We didn't put different pregame meal. You know, we go out to execute every game. Sometimes the opponent makes that really hard. Sometimes we make it hard because we bust. But that's the objective every game. How do we start fast? What do we do to start fast? And how can we execute better than the other team? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
So he says it's no pill. He even mentioned the pregame meal, which Gunnar Stockton did tell us they ate steak at AM. So it wasn't, you know, last week we had the great soundbite from London Humphrey saying it's a donut game. No, it was a steak game. They didn't change the pregame meal. So what do you think was different that Georgia was able to get off to this fast start?
Part of it was playing the worst team in the league.
Okay,
and then part of it was being at home. And it's hard when you travel and it's a noon game. And Georgia was ready for this game. I mean, they worked on a lot of things specifically. You heard him talk about stripping the ball. That came to fruition later when C.J. Allen stripped, recovered a fumble, led directly to a touchdown. You know, the new starter at tailback, Chauncey Bowens, hungry to get a good performance, breaking off those runs, running with some extra. Gunnar Stockton wanting to lead by example. He was one of the guys that took accountability after the loss and said he was going to look in the mirror, so he's going to come out and play well. And then the defense. I mean, let's face it. They got off to a slow start against Alabama. They're going to dig in with their cleats and try to make plays. A lot of competition for playing time, too. It's not just trying to beat the other team. It's trying to be assignment sound and hold your spot, because Kirby plugged some young guys in there. You saw Elias Williams in the game early. Now, Kirby can say it was just pure coincidence that he caught those passes, but it wasn't pure coincidence that the true freshman was in on the opening series.
Yeah, and I do think some of this young team's going to get older. I think that's part of it, too. You talk about the freshmen they've had to play on the offensive line. They're going to get reps again this week, we're pretty sure, because Monroe Fielding's still kind of a flip of the coin if he's going to be back.
And Bo Hughley did a great job. I mean, he was the highest-rated offensive lineman out there, switching from right to left tackle.
So you're going to see some of those young guys. They have experience now. They're going to Auburn, but they've at least now they've been to Neyland Stadium. They understand what this is all about on the road in the SEC.
Yeah, and that Auburn defense is really tough. This is one of the best teams against the run in the SEC, really in the nation. I mean, the Auburn defense has not been the problem. You look at Auburn and they're not ranked, and you say, well, they've got a couple of SEC losses, Cody. But, at Oklahoma, when John Mateer was healthy, at Texas A&M, I mean, that's the number 5 and number 6 ranked team in the country. So 2 losses by a touchdown on the road to a top 6 team. I mean, you could say they got better losses than Georgia's lost to Alabama. Those teams are ranked ahead of Alabama.
Right.
And those were road games. So Hugh Freeze, I do think this is an improved Auburn team. 2 losses at home, backs against the wall. I mean, this is going to be a war.
I think it's one of those things, too, if you're Georgia, the reason you want to get off to a fast start. Kirby said it in the Tennessee game. We are not a team that's going to be built to come from behind. Right. Georgia wants to get ahead and run the ball and control the football. That's also what Auburn wants to do, right? They want to be able to run the football. They're one of the worst passing teams in the SEC, right there hanging with Kentucky at the bottom of the league. So they want to control the ball and run the ball. So whatever team can enforce their will that way, you feel like that's going to play into your game plan better. If you can get out there, get ahead, and not, fall in this hole, which Georgia has done time after time, then you play your style of football.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, neither one of these teams, like you said, is real great throwing the ball downfield. Jackson Arnold with some decision-making issues. Gunnar Stockton, we saw him go downfield a little bit more. Kirby was just happy to see that ball going vertical. He says, hey, he had an interception, but you got to take some risks, right? And even though Gunnar is risk-averse and doesn't want to turn it over, you got to take those chances to make big plays, and you got to stretch that field out vertically so that you give those receivers some room to work underneath and create some space for your running back. So that was a big step for Gunnar. Even though he did throw a pick, he did also complete some passes downfield. So to me, for Georgia to be a championship team, that's a step that Gunnar Stockton has to take, is getting comfortable, turning that ball loose over the middle. We saw Ty Simpson grow into that at Alabama. Now it's Gunnar Stockton's turn to try to do that.
Yeah, and Kirby didn't sound all that upset that he threw. He almost is like happy. Okay, all right, we're taking chances a little bit. He is far from being what Carson Beck was last year, where the ball's just going the other team a couple of times a game. We haven't seen that. So, yeah, it is good to see him risk it a little bit. You talk about the passing game for Auburn. It's a team that gives up sacks in bunches. You talk about 10 as they took on Oklahoma and 5 against Texas A&M. So this is a team where you can get to the quarterback. So if you can force them to have to throw, that's where they are not at their best.
Well, and we've talked, this is something that Georgia's trying to do anyway. So if not now, when, right? So this is an opportunity, I think, for some of these pass rushers to emerge, Cody.
When you talk about the Auburn crowd, that's something that came up a few times today. And Kirby has talked about in years past where it's like this threshold where it's just loud as loud at some point. But, you look back on some of the video from 2023 game, we were there, and just so happens Cam Newton was firing up the student section. He'll be firing them up again this week. This is a crowd that's definitely going to have its impact on the game.
Yeah, and there's no Brock Bowers to make, 7-8 catches for 152 yards and save the day. I mean, it was a battle the last time. Georgia had to come from behind the last time they played at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And as you said, Cody, they're not really built for that this year. So even more importance on the run game, not turning the ball over, and not giving up the dynamic plays. And I will say that I do think the secondary has grown into that a little bit more. We've seen some players emerge there on the back end, still kind of looking for that other safety spot to settle down. But you get the feeling that maybe DeMel Jones, you look at his PFF rankings, and they're pretty solid.
Yeah, he seems like he has established himself. It was interesting to hear from Dalen Everett today. He said he got his chance, and he has not blown his chance. So credit to DeMello Jones for doing that. But you do look across the line. It's Cam Coleman. It's Eric Singleton. These guys are big play kind of my mind goes back to first quarter of Tennessee, how it can just happen in a flash with some of these big-time playmakers.
Well, you got to get to them before they get to you. You know, I was talking with Gene Stallings before the Alabama game about Ty Simpson, and he said, look, you better get to this guy or he's going to beat you to death. Georgia did not get to him, and he beat Georgia to death in the first half. And I said, well, you know, but what if your secondaries? He said, that's why you blitz, because if you try to play coverage and these guys don't cover, you're going to hang them out there. The blitz is to help the secondary, but you got to arrive. And when we say blitz, we mean take that chance and bring the extra defender, and that's where Kirby and Glenn Schumann have to be really calculated, because don't forget, you blitz from one side, Jackson Arnold goes to the other, and Kirby said it today. This guy doesn't just get 8 or 9 Gunnar Stockton yards. This is a guy that'll take it 60 or 70 Stetson Bennett yards when he gets loose.
Yeah, so for this Georgia team, got to get off to the fast start for so many reasons this week, whether it is the crowd. The other aspect I think of with this Auburn team, they've had a couple tough losses, right?
Yeah.
It's been not happy articles that the on-the-beat writers are writing down on the plains right now. You have a team that has not beaten Georgia since any of those guys have been there. It's been 8 straight that Georgia has won. Do you wonder at some point, can you make them quit? Right? Can you get up on them by 14 and then things aren't going their way? And then can you get those guys out of their game plan? That could be another key if you get off to a fast start.
Yeah, I mean, some questions about Hugh Freeze. And remember, this is one of the first coaches that was running RPOs, and he does call a good game. We know that. He has given Kirby trouble in the past. But there are questions about his future. I mean, he may be coaching for his future in this game. Auburn loses a 3rd game, Cody, and that really puts them on the brink of being out. Hard to imagine Auburn getting in with 3 losses. They do have a game with Alabama remaining, obviously, but this is a marquee game for the Auburn Tigers to stay alive, just like it was a marquee game for Alabama a couple weeks ago to come in here and get that win for Kalen DeBoer.
When you think about the point spread on this game, came out and it was like 3.5, 4.5 in favor of Georgia. Does it surprise you, or is that just because of the respect that I think the bettors still have for Auburn and knowing this home atmosphere and all this stuff that goes along with this game?
A little bit less than I expected, honestly. I would have thought Georgia a touchdown favorite, but I do think people are aware that Georgia has struggled. And, you know, you look at Georgia and, you know, middle of the league in scoring and middle of the league in we're not used to seeing that. We're used to seeing Georgia being an elite defense that doesn't give up a lot of points. And, you know, even offensively, we're used to seeing maybe a little bit more prolific numbers from time to time. So this is a Georgia team, though, that's growing, that's getting better every week. It's improving in increments. And the question is, can they improve fast enough for this stretch of games coming up? Because as much as it's about Auburn, it's about getting momentum for Ole Miss, and now all of a sudden what looks to be a pretty scary Florida team.
Yeah, you look back at this Georgia team against Kentucky, and that's the question that I have. Is Kirby talked about how much of this roster is young coming into this season, and they're going to grow throughout the season. We expect that. The only thing you do wonder is some of it fool's gold because it was Kentucky last week, or are these guys really taking those next steps? I think that's going to be, I mean, you're going to find out when you go down to Auburn.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. You know, I think playing Kentucky helps. I mean, obviously that's not a marquee SEC opponent, but look, it is an SEC team. Mark Stoops is a good coach who has given Georgia trouble in the past. You know, last year, as you pointed out, that was a 1-point game in Lexington. Now, obviously, Brock Vandegrift and JDJ are gone, but still, Kentucky wanted to win that game every bit as much as Georgia. They're recruiting guys. They're developing guys. They had a plan, and they actually did a pretty decent job of taking away Zachariah Branch. It was so big for Georgia for Dylan Bell to step up and Bones to run like that, because you're going to have to win games with your number 2 and 3 options. These other defenses are good enough to take away what you do best.
Yeah, Zachariah Branch wasn't a huge part, and we still haven't seen a ton of Noah Thomas. If you're going to talk about fast starts and who's going to be the man, I think the running game and Chauncey Bones, do you expect him, do we think he'll start again? I don't think he lost his job by any means. And then is it on that first drive, Branch has got to touch the ball at some point, right? Like, you got to figure out a way to get him the ball.
Yeah, and that's up to Mike Bobo. And the great thing about Branch is there's so many ways he can do it. You know, we saw against Alabama, he carries it from the 4-yard line, gets him out of trouble, gets a drive started. Obviously, he's willing to go over the middle. He made a really big catch on a 3rd and 11 against Alabama. You know, a guy you can throw a quick wide receiver screen to. So many different ways that you can use him. And Dylan Bell, also another versatile player. So now if you're Auburn, you can't just key on number 1. You know, you got to take a look at what Bell can do too. There's so many different formations and shifts that Georgia's going to spring in this game that you have not seen before. They're going to do what they can to confuse Auburn. They're going to find out who Auburn's keying on, and then they're going to hit them where they ain't. And this is where Gunnar Stockton comes into play, Cody. You can draw him up, but Gunnar has to find that open receiver, and then he has to deliver the ball on time, get the ball out of his hands, whether it's vertical, whether it's horizontal, or make the decision to go ahead and tuck it. So a lot of decision making going on for Gunnar Stockton, and how he manages this game is going to be everything.
And then one thing we did find out at Tennessee, a big-time atmosphere. He stepped up. And he's got the marbles to make those kind of big-time plays.
There's no doubt about it. London Humphrey's the guy that made that great catch. Yet another weapon in the Georgia arsenal. You take a look at this receiving car, Cody. It's a full level up from where it was a year ago. So much better than what Carson Beck had to throw to. Good to see these guys making these catches and yards after the catch. And maybe we see more Elias Williams. I mean, a 6'7", 255-pound guy that gets open and a true freshman. Hey, get a look at him now. He's only going to be here for 3 years.
Yeah, Elias Williams has been fun to watch early on in this season. We'll talk about some of the other guys who we've got a fun question at the end of the game or end of the show tonight that I'm going to ask Mike about. We'll get his response on that. But we also have our staples coming up. Boots on the ground. What was I able to see on ground level in the Kentucky game, and what's Mike think about a wild weekend in the SEC? We'll get his thoughts on that. This is On the Beat, presented by Ingles.
And it's the first title in team history. Here it is. And lightning strikes twice, back-to-back championships. 3 in a row. They've done it again.
Where did those cheese come from? Relax. They're from Ingles.
Can I eat this now?
All right, welcome back into On the Beat. Cody Chaffins and Mike Griffith with you as you get ready for the Auburn game. But one of the things we like to do on this show every week, since I get to film all the games, is show you some of the things that maybe you didn't catch on the TV broadcast, or we can dive into a little bit more. We'll do it right now with Boots on the Ground. All right, got 3 things to show you today, and the couple are injury related, but the first one was just so impressive to me. It's a video of kind of right in the middle of the second quarter the other day as Georgia is driving, and Gunnar Stockton takes a snap, and right in front of him you will see Micah Morris. Micah Morris, number 56, playing guard for Georgia. And just keep your eyes on number 56 throughout this play. There he is right there. You see the big arrow pointing at him. But watch Morris as he goes through the play. So he's going to engage the guy here, and you'll see that left arm just kind of drop. And right at that moment is when his shoulder came out of socket. Now, this dude doesn't hit the ground like I would and just writhing in pain and doing whatever he does. He just kind of moseys his way. Hey, guys, just get somebody for me. He's not even going to go down. He's just going to walk all the way to the sideline. They're going to pop that sucker back in place, and he's going to keep playing. I mean, it's a whole different level of tough.
Yeah, shoulder subluxations can be difficult, and he knew what it was right away. You can see, when he motions to the sideline, he's going to need that thing put back in. And you're right, the offensive line and defensive line, thankless positions. I mean, these guys are making some heavy contact every play against a lot of big bodies.
Let's hear what Kirby Smart had to say about how tough Micah Morris has been.
Micah's dealing with a hamstring pull from week before. He was able to go without – he didn't give me any reps in practice, and then his shoulder slipped out, which he's dealing with, and he came back. But, I mean, they're a mass unit. I mean, it's tough sledding. It's the dangest thing I've ever seen with the offensive line in terms of, never played with 2 freshmen, never played with 5 guys, and having to roll guys. It's been really tough. Yeah, I mean, he's probably not the only guy. Jordan Hall's that way. We have a tough culture here. We have a physical culture here, and they believe in pushing through if they can. And I'm proud of them for that. There's value for them in terms of the culture they develop for our team, but there's value for them in terms of what they want to do at the next level, because those guys play hurt every week. And that's the first question they ask is, these guys, Tate Ratledge, Dylan Fairchild, they all played hurt last year. So if that's your culture, then they want guys that are willing to go out there and play with bumps and bruises, and our guys have really pushed through that.
So Kirby saying, yeah, that's kind of the standard. You're going to play with bumps and bruises, whether it was Tate Ratledge doing it a year ago, coming back to Dylan Fairchild, and the guys on the second or the NFL level, they appreciate somebody who can tough through it a little bit.
Well, there's something to be said about what guys go through when they're at the University of Georgia, and the offensive line production and the offensive line development. Mike is a guy that's been in the pipe for a long time, waiting for his opportunity to start, and I think he's making the most of it. I believe he might be one of the last scholarship guys from the 2021 team.
He's been here a long time.
Been around a minute, and he doesn't want to miss these opportunities. You're only guaranteed 12 of them. So, a lot of toughness, a lot of leadership there, but also a lot of team culture. the Georgia football team, as much as we look at them with a critical eye, I mean, they are the envy of the vast majority of the nation, if not in the SEC.
So that it tells you a couple things about this week. Like Monroe Freeling, if that's the culture, he's going to try his darndest. And Kirby Smart said, good news today. It's not one of those high ankle, tightrope surgery type of ankles for Monroe Freeling. So if he can get back out there, that's going to be great. But when guys are missing, they are banged up. It's like a guy like Ernest Green, who we hadn't seen in a few weeks.
Yeah, obviously a pretty serious injury there. And a nice shuffle by Georgia. They've used 5 different offensive line combinations in 5 games. You'd like to see him settle in and get a little bit of continuity there. That makes all the difference in the world. And
they'll know this week whether Bo Hughley is going to have to go to the other side, because you heard Kirby say Bo is working. He'd been working on the right side, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, go to left tackle. That was kind of Xavier Trust for years and years. It's like, you just go plug the hole, go be the utility guy. All right, next thing, late in this ball game, it was fun. To be honest, I wasn't shooting much of the game anymore. It was in hand, so I decided to go just hang out by Kirby Smart and get a little bit of video. What was really interesting to me was watching him coach up guys in the secondary late in this ball game. So you'll see him right here. He's talking to Zion Branch, and he is talking to Adrian Maddox, some of the safeties. But he also was right in there with Rayshawn Dinkins, got a couple plays throughout this game. And they had a couple of these timeouts late where Kirby's just really coaching up hard. And you can see this is 35-7, right? And they score that. He is just as intense as he ever was, but he's getting with those guys. I just told you what they were going to do on this play, and you got to get out there and make the play. And then Kirby, after the game, somebody asked him, how good is it to get some of these young guys time? It was really interesting what he had to say afterwards.
It's great for those kids, because what it is a learning process. They all tell me they're ready to play. Why aren't they playing? Why aren't they playing? Well, go break down the tape and watch. You have an opportunity to make a play. Did you make the play? You were in man-to-man. Did you make the play? You were in zone. Did you make the play? You had an open field tackle. Did you make the play? So that great thing is that's a learning experience that they can go back to work on and continue to get better.
So Kirby is, now you can, when you come to me and say, why am I playing, coach?
That's right.
There you go. You had your chance. Get out there and do it, man.
Yeah, it's as much as Georgia gets out of their practices with iron sharpening iron, there's nothing that really simulates that game speed and being out there, and those are really critical teaching moments. Kirby taking advantage of every snap, obviously. He knows he has to develop this team and coach up the bottom of the roster to get closer to the top.
It's one of the things we started the show talking about, right? How do you get off to a fast start? Why is it important on the road? Why is it important in games like that we saw last week? Because it didn't happen enough last year, especially in SEC play. You weren't getting ahead in these games where some of these young guys could get. So this young team's even younger because guys like Ellis Robinson didn't get as many reps last year as you would have liked him to get if you can get in a game and blow out. So another key reason why it was important for Georgia to get out ahead and stay ahead against Kentucky.
Yeah, I think this was the first time since the Texas game last year that Georgia actually led at halftime. Typically, they've been tied or behind. And to your point, when you're behind like that, you don't really have a lot of room for substitution or specialty packages, right? So I think these are great opportunities right now, certainly the Kentucky game, to get some of those guys in there, give them quality reps. For some of them, it's the first significant action that they've seen since the Austin Peay game.
And so good stuff right there. I'll give you one more little piece of info, then again, something you may not have seen coming off the field the other day. It was on Thursday on the report, the injury report. We saw all of a sudden Talon Taylor, the freshman wide receiver, was going to miss. There he is right there in the sling. So I hate to see that for Talon Taylor because he had to drop against Alabama, which we've all seen and all talked about. And you want that one chance to get out there and erase that. And now he's got to wait. He's dealing with an injury, obviously, that has him in a sling.
Yeah, it needs to really make the most of the mental reps. I mean, this is a guy who clearly has talent and speed. He was a priority recruit, a guy that'll be eager to atone once he gets healthy again. It's a long season, Cody. We're 5 games in, but, this could be a 14, 15-game season.
Yeah, so he can get healed up, and maybe he can get out there and finally get those memories erased. Yeah. So that is Boots on the Ground for this week. It's kind of fun to share some of the stuff we get on the sideline view of everything. It'll be no different. I'll be having my earplugs in at Jordan here this week as we go down there and see what we get. All right, so we do Boots on the Ground. Then it's, of course, time for Mike's 30,000-foot view. All right, Mike, so we'll start this week with what happened in the swamp.
Yeah.
Talk about being loud. It was very loud. And this Texas team, which is ranked to the top of the polls to start the season, not in the AP poll this week.
Yeah, really hadn't been playing anybody. They lost to Ohio State and played a few middling teams and put up some, pretend numbers. You go to the Swamp, it's hostile, it's loud, it's a really good defense. We've known that all season long, and Arch Manning had some good moments, but he had too many bad moments. But to me, the key for Florida, and we said it last year and we're saying it again, it's DJ Lagway. This is a guy that missed a lot of time in the offseason, really didn't have his timing down, looked rusty, 5-interception game at LSU, and they only lost by 10. To me, that was the clue. Hey, you throw 5 picks, you lose by 10 under the lights at Tiger Stadium. That's a pretty good football team. And right now, Florida looking more dangerous than ever, and we've seen this act before. Remember last year, Billy Napier, slow start. They go into a bye week. The team rallies around one another. Lagway has some really dangerous weapons, and I know we're all, focused on the Auburn game now, and certainly Ole Miss is going to be a big game at Sanford Stadium. But that cocktail party, that's looking awful dangerous to me. We'll see what happens with Florida this week. They've got to go to A&M, and they beat A&M. Now, that's going to make a believer out of me. That's going to be a tough place to play. Texas A&M looking like a potential national championship contender. We'll find out if that defense travels, and we'll find out if Lagway continues to make progress. And Jordan Bob, pretty good running back, pretty good kid from Georgia that got away. I like this running back quite a lot. So the Gators right now with some really key pillars that are playing well, some momentum as they go into College Station.
Yeah, so looking ahead on the schedule, the Texas game, it still doesn't make me feel if you're a Georgia fan, you're not feeling great about still having Texas come here. This is still going to be a team that's got talk about pretty good defense.
Yeah.
And then also, at some point it'll come together, you think, for the offense there.
Well, and they've got another quarterback too, and his name slips my mind, but he goes in the game when Manny gets his helmet knocked off and throws a 24, 26-yard dart. Manny comes back in late and throws a pick, and you're starting to wonder, well, is this other guy, if Manny doesn't get it together and you're Sark, you got 2 losses now. Oh, yeah. One more loss, and Texas is on the ropes. Now, granted, these are not bad losses at Ohio State and at Florida, but still, you get that 3rd loss and you're putting the decision in the hands of the committee. And right now, as equal as the SEC is, there could be several 3-loss. You get a 4 or 5 3-loss teams right now, and then you get into those tiebreakers.
Yeah, talk about Texas. They're got the Red River Shootout coming up this week as they take on Oklahoma. It was interesting to see them favored as they went into this matchup.
No John Mateer. Remember that. That's the key.
The one thing I saw last week, and this it tickled me. So there's a report. Everybody wants to know when John Mateer is coming back. So there's a report on Twitter about the tortilla presser at Chipotle asked John Materi when he was in Chipotle, and he said 100% he was playing. This is the kind of stuff. That's why I think Oklahoma is perfect in the SEC, because that's the kind of SEC craziness. It's the tortilla presser. He thinks John Mateer is going to play.
Now, if he would have said that at a Taco Bell, I would have been more inclined to believe him. But at Chipotle, you got to wonder a little bit, right?
Yes.
You do wonder. And look, he's a fantastic player. He was the front runner for the Heisman Trophy going into that game. Obviously, key transfer from Washington State. So much at stake here in this game. Oklahoma, though, the real key to them, they may have the best defense in the SEC.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Always a fun game to watch, and there will be a lot of eyes on Mr. Arch Manning this week. Vandy at Alabama, it was a game that it was tight for a while there. It got a little bit away from Vanderbilt at the end. Diego Pavia, a couple of mistakes in the game. But this is the Bama team that's now beaten Georgia. They beat Vandy in a game that they were going to be up for because of what happened last year. Now they got to go to Mizzou. They take on Mizzou this week. It's not an easy schedule for Alabama. It just keeps coming.
Yeah. I'm not from Missouri, but still, you got to show me, right? Missouri has got sneaky good. Don't forget Damon Wilson. Remember that guy? Pretty good. I think he had more QB pressures than the whole Georgia team did combined. How are they going to be able to protect Ty Simpson against Missouri? Now, I don't think Missouri is any great shakes as far as most dangerous stadiums, but Kirby Smart will tell you Georgia's had some tough games there. It's going to be interesting to see if Alabama can sustain against what I think is turned out to be a pretty sneaky good Missouri team, and maybe they got the right Penn State quarterback. Maybe Penn State kept the wrong quarterback. As Bo Pribula guys that played pretty decent, and they also got a really good running back. Yeah,
it is outside the scope of the SEC, but when you talk about what hasn't happened to Penn State falling out, that 1, 2, and 4 from the original AP poll are unranked at this point in the season is wild.
Yeah, it just tells you everything you need to know about the parity in college football, and sometimes we do get ahead of ourselves. And look, as much as we've put on Arch Manning, Cody, their offensive line has been atrocious, and he's working with a new set of receivers. We talk about the challenges Gunnar Stockton has as a first-year starter. I mean, that's not just Gunnar. I think that's any first-year starter, and in this transfer portal age, when you're, slicing and dicing so many receivers in and out from year to year, you don't really get that time. You don't really get to come up with those guys in the ranks and build relationships. So Arch is under the spotlight. He's the guy that's going to take all the big hits. But the reality is, I think the infrastructure of the Texas offense is questionable.
All right, so it'll be interesting to see how all of that shakes out. I think a lot of it just, too, is like the parity in college football, right? Like, there's so many teams. I don't think anybody saw UCLA knocking off Penn State this week. But, and that also can happen when you build your conference coast to coast, and these teams are traveling so far. So interesting stuff there. All right, we got one more segment coming up on the show. We're going to ask Mike a question. It'll be interesting. I want to see what you guys have to say as well in the comments. So you get ready to get your typing fingers ready to let us know what you're thinking. We'll do all that in just a minute here on The Beat.
Hey, DawgNation, it's Brandon Adams, the host of DawgNation Daily here at Cercheros. And when I'm ready to eat, I want to eat something that I feel like was made fresh for me. And that's what the friendly folks at Cercheros do each and every day. In fact, let me give you a little bit of a taste of what that looks like right now. So I'll do a flour tortilla with Southwest rice, black beans. May I have steak, please? Cheese, and some pico, and some corn. I would love that grilled, absolutely. Can't beat the taste of those fresh grilled toppings added on. Jalapenos, some guac. The guac is free add-on here at Cercheros. And then I'll do some Cercheros sauce too, please. Looks great. And this football season, I want you to think of Cercheros for your tailgate watching and game day party needs. In fact, this year, DawgNation with Cercheros is going to give away the ultimate game day party. You go to the website, DawgNation.com/tailgate. You can register for your chance to win the ultimate game day party, courtesy of Cercheros.
Yeah, appreciate it. And today is October 6th, and when we're recording this, if you're watching Monday night, tonight is the night. Get on there, DawgNation.com/tailgate, and get yourself registered for that. Another thing you might want to do is you start planning down the road. Get ready for clean, old-fashioned. Hey, Georgia and Georgia Tech going to be inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium this year as this one gets moved, so you're always sometimes worried about the weather in late November as Georgia and Georgia Tech get together. It's going to be inside the Benz. That's the second home for dog fans. So I want to encourage you to go to Mercedes-Benz.com/events. You can buy tickets to this. Sometimes for Georgia games, you got to know a guy to be able to buy tickets for stuff, especially big games like this. And the way it is shaping up, Georgia Tech, creeping up on Georgia. This is a team ranked in Georgia. This could be a great one. I don't know if it'll top clean old-fashioned 8 from last year, 8 overtimes dog victory, but it could be very fun. So it's a chance for you to get inside and watch Georgia and Georgia Tech in person. Again, you go to Mercedes-Benz.com/events. You can purchase your tickets right there today. All right, one of the special events on the Plains this week is Auburn will be retiring Cam Newton's jersey, which is interesting for a ton of different reasons. But it got me thinking, so Cam Newton, he spent like 1 year in Auburn, and he gets his jersey retired, which is impressive, but it got me thinking, who's the best? Who would be Georgia's version of like a 1 year, just great 1 year? And obviously nobody won the Heisman coming in for 1 year, but it started going through your mind of like, who are some of these guys? One that came to mind for me, Darian Kendrick. Remember, he picked him up off of Clemson. Yeah. He started every game for Georgia in that 2021 season, ended up being the defensive MVP in the Orange Bowl. So that was just 1 year. So there's been some great transfers that had multiple years, but one guy that just kind of came in for 1 year.
Yeah, well, recency bias leads me to Trevor Etienne, especially the way he piled up the touchdowns against Texas. And when you think about the 2024 season and how we frame it, it's as an SEC championship team. Getting those wins over Texas was big. I don't think you beat Texas without Trevor Etienne, and then the double whammy was you took him from Florida,
right?
And you may Florida didn't have him for that game. Now I think he may have gotten a little banged up in that game, but he wasn't on the other side, and that was good that you didn't have to play against him. Now Kendrick, clearly that was big because they won a national championship. You wonder who the next piece would have been. But Lawrence Cager was a guy.
Yeah.
And that was a tough time for Georgia. They were in a little bit of a transition after 2018, a disappointing finish, narrowly missing the playoff, losing to Texas in the Sugar Bowl. In 2019, they really had to kind of fight their way through that season. George Pickens was a freshman, didn't really contribute till the second half of the season. I don't think I'll ever forget, though, Lawrence Cager. Remember the meme of him, waking up out of the Undertaker out of the coffin when he comes out of injury and has the huge game against Florida at a really pivotal time for Georgia to keep the program momentum and keep those wheels churning into what proved to be a pivotal 2020 recruiting class, I think that's when you got Brock Bowers came out of that class,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, right? So that was big that Georgia finished that season with a win over Baylor. Was that the Sugar Bowl also? I believe it was.
Yes.
Yeah, Pickens goes off for a big game. So I thought what he brought was really important at that time. So those are some of the guys that come. I guess JT Daniels would have been a 2 and done.
Yeah.
But you think about the path that he laid in the quarterback room and the leadership in the offseason going into the 2021 season, all the work that those guys had done with JT, all the receivers, the offensive line, the direction of the program, and saving a top 10 season with a really dramatic comeback against Cincinnati. Who would have known? Marcus Freeman, defensive coordinator over there, taking notes that would he rely on a little bit later on. But I thought, those are some guys that have come in. So the portal, it's cut both ways. I mean, look, Cody, nobody's dancing around the topic. Carson Beck's a co-Heisman Trophy favorite. His team's undefeated, whatever, 5 years of Georgia. You lose some guys like that. Damon Wilson having a good time right now at Missouri. But you look at the guys that have come in. Zachariah Branch is having a really special year. He's the best player on the football team. You got to like that. And Josh McCray. The contributions, maybe not big from a volume standpoint, but boy, that big guy powered in when he really needed to against Tennessee. So I like the direction that this is going for Georgia. I know there's some other guys that still need to evolve a little bit at some different positions. Maybe it's safety. Maybe you'd like to see Noah Thomas emerge. Elo, the outside linebacking pass rushing specialist from Army, he's kind of getting some things. So, but to your point, those guys have been critical for Georgia to win big games and championships.
Yeah, I think for sure Zachariah Branch could move to the top of that list.
Yes.
If the rest of the year goes the way it should, then the way it could for him, then he is going to be a one and done because
I'll
the
tell
NFL
you
will
what,
start calling.
I'll tell you what, he better not fair catch any more punts inside the 5-yard line. I would have liked to have seen a boots on the ground to Kirby Smart on that. Not mic him up. I don't know if we could have played that, but Kirby not happy with Zachariah in that one play. But look, the guy's doing so many different things, right? Not only is he in on so many different offensive plays and so many motions and so many reads he has to make, but you've also got him on special teams as a return man. Tells you how much Kirby Smart emphasizes that punt return unit.
Yeah, it should be fun to see, but you're right. The catch inside. It makes me think of what Chauncey Bowens said. He was asked today, he said, sometimes in college or football, we've seen these guys dropping the ball as they cross the goal line. He said, what would happen? He said, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I don't want to even imagine what would happen if, something like that happened here. But, yeah, he would definitely rip into us, the least to say.
Yeah, his face said it all then, because those are the kind of mistakes Georgia players typically don't make. And Branch's fair catch, it was a little out of line. You got to think the guy starts at the 10-yard line. If you're backing up, just let it go. But again, in the moment, you don't know what's going through their mind or where his mind was at on that play. And Georgia was able to overcome that, so it didn't turn out to be such a big deal.
It makes the 96-yard drive look that much better.
Take a little more time off the clock.
On the score sheet, of course. And then you talk about London Humphreys, who was a transfer of multiple years, but he made a special teams play pretty nice the other day as well. One guy, what we talked about, the one-year hired gun kind of guy, I think early on, back to when Kirby first got here, 2016, there was so much talk about could a guy transfer?
Yeah.
I think back Maurice
Did a
Smith,
waiver. You had to have a waiver.
Maurice Smith, and he was transferring inside the SEC. Bump up on the commissioner had to okay it. But I do think 2016 not a memorable season for Georgia by any means, but he was a guy who came over with Kirby from his defense at Alabama, playing this position star, which Georgia really hadn't had before. I think he's a guy, he's not going to put up the numbers like a Cager or think about Darian Kendrick, but he was a guy, one of the bright spots on that defense back in 2016. And you talk about guys helping to lay that foundation for what Georgia would become.
Yeah, and I asked Kirby today about, how tough it is to come in and contribute. And he said it's not tough at all. He said if you're the best guy at your position and you practice better than everyone else, you're going to get on the field. So he doesn't necessarily think that there's some, some blockade that's keeping someone up from coming in and contributing right away. He feels like it's a pretty open system and that he's had some guys contribute. And, Kirby told us today he's happy with where the transfers are at right now overall.
Yeah, you think about Cam Newton. I think about Jalen Hurts did that one-year transfer. So you talk about Carson, but these things are happening in places. Georgia has not had that done yet, but it's not out of the question now in this transfer portal age.
No, and I think eventually, you'll see more of the transfer quarterbacks when you take a look around the country at, some of the elite play you're getting. This is becoming more and more common now for quarterbacks to transfer, and NFL teams, they like it. they like seeing a guy playing a different system, or again, in the case of Beck, sometimes you just need a change of scenery, a different opportunity. The door opens for someone else. Now, Georgia has a pretty talented quarterback committed.
Yes.
So, excuse me, I don't think they're in the market for that anytime soon. But we have seen, like Missouri, a great example with the Penn State transfer, and we're going to see how they do against Alabama. That's going to be a really big football game this weekend.
Yeah, Cam Ward, I think last year, John Mateer, guys that have started one place. And
Jackson Arnold now, at Auburn, his Auburn legacy on the line against Georgia on Saturday night.
So something to think about. You guys get on there. Let us know who we forgot about. I tried to go back to like the older transfers, like guys like Terrell Davis or Ben Watson, but they were multi-year guys.
How about Justin Fields? He got Ohio State to a national championship, right?
He only spent 1 year at Georgia. So I guess if you took my question, who spent best player to spend just 1 year at Georgia, I guess he could be on that list as well. So something to think about. You guys get on there, tell us why we're wrong, and tell us why we're right about some of that stuff. Really fun stuff there. All right, so we're getting ready, going down to the Plains this week. You got great memories down there?
Yeah, I mean, my first year covering SEC football was at Auburn in 1993. And, the Tigers went undefeated with Terry Bowden, the best team you never saw. They weren't allowed on television. There were some classic battles down there. Saw a lot of great football games. Hard to believe Terry Bowden won his first 19 games. I mean, what other SEC coach does that? I don't know if anybody's ever gotten less credit for doing more, but that was an incredible time. And Rick Neuheisel at that time, he was one of the hired guns, and his name pops to mind because his son was calling plays for UCLA. I guess we're getting old here, Cody, but
I think that's what that means.
But to your point, Jordan-Hare Stadium it's an incredible atmosphere. I still think they need to power wash it. Looks like that cement on the outside is getting a little dirty there. I mean, let's up the budget a little bit, make your stadium look a little nicer. But inside, it is raucous, it is loud, and they've got some crazy bounces there. That's one of those stadiums.
Oh yeah.
People don't, they get a little nervous. Yeah. They don't like going in there. Some crazy stuff's happening. We'll see what Auburn does. Right now, I really believe that program's at a crossroads with Hugh Freeze. He's either going to be the guy or he's not. And I do think this is the telltale year now. Who might take that job? What might happen next? I'm not sure. But, those Auburn fans, it's been a minute since they've been significant. We talked about this on our work call today. The last time Auburn was significant, Gus Malzahn was talking about beating the crap out of somebody. And Auburn hasn't beaten Georgia since, and Kirby has not forgotten. I guarantee you he has not forgotten that, Cody.
That's interesting stuff right there. All right, we're going to wrap it up for On the Beat. We'll see you right back here next week.